Hi, how are you tonight? I hope you're ready for bed. I hope you're all tucked in, brushed your teeth. I hope you got your drink and you're all settled in so you don't have to get back up again. So, anyways, we have an audience again tonight, and we are going to go to a real place and do something that really could happen. We have some magic going on, but let's see what happens. So, in this story, it's daytime, and Charity, that would be Desmond and Tia and Lindley's mommy, is in the van with Grandma. And Grandma's driving, and she's talking to Charity, and they're just jabbering away, talking. And then every once in a while they say back to the kids, quit bickering. No, you can't play with your iPad. You guys look out the window. Quit talking to each other like that. All that kind of thing. You know how it is in the car. It's like that all the time. So they were sitting there just listening to the moms and Grandma just talking away like crazy. And Tia looked out the window and she saw a light coming, and she knew right away, and she said, hey guys, look over here. And you know what? Grandma and Charity, they didn't even notice they said anything. And just like that, the light approached and came closer and closer and closer. And of course, as it always does, it swooped down over the van that was moving right along the highway. And in an instant, all three of the children were on his back. Of course, Desmond's in the back, and then there's Tia, and then there's Lindley, and they've got their arms wrapped around each other. And as always, Pegasus throws his head back, and his mighty mane flies around and touches them in the face and tickles them, and they laugh. And Lindley just leans forward, and she gave him a great big hug. And Tia said, I'm so glad to see you again. Where we go? And he goes, well, it's a surprise. But you'll like it, I'm sure. And Desmond says, how far? And he says, well, we have to make one more pickup on the way. So he goes just a little ways, because he's going pretty fast, and swoops down over Priya and Talia's house. Now, so we have a 10-year-old, that's Desmond, and Tia, who's 6 or 7, just about to turn 7. And then Lindley and Priya, who are 2, going to be 3 real soon, and then little tiny Talia that's just 1 year old, just barely talking. So, anyways, they're all on there. We've got all 5 of them, and they're the little ones. Desmond, of course, is almost one of the big kids, so he's kind of being a leader here tonight and helping out. So Pegasus says, hang on, and now this is Talia and Priya's second time, so they know what's going on, and they aren't afraid, and they're just loving on Pegasus and talking to him and jabbering away, and away they fly, and they go out west. They go west and farther across the plains, and they come to the Black Hills area in South Dakota, and there's a treasure of things there, that especially some national parks. And what they do is they fly over this mountain. Only as they get closer, they look at it, and the rocks on the mountain start forming something. And they look, and Desmond says, "It's men. Their faces." And Tia says, "Yes, I see it." And Talia says, "Da da 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 da," because she doesn't talk very much yet. And Priya says, "I see it." And Desmond says, what is that, Pegasus? And he says, that is called Mount Rushmore. And as he's telling the children about it, he's flying first high over above, and then lower, and then almost right in front of it. And what it is, it's 4 presidents, and they're carved in the stone. And it's George Washington, and Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas Jefferson, and Teddy Roosevelt. And the carvings in the mountain are so big you can stand in their eyes. So they look at it, and the kids are just marveling at it. And it took 14 years to carve those faces out of the side of the mountain. And Pegasus, hang on, we're going to head up the road a little bit. So they head west and to the north a little, and about 15 miles, and Desmond's looking and looking because he knows he's supposed to see something, and Tia's looking. Finally, Tia says, there, over there on that mountain, that's bigger than Mount Rushmore. And she looks, and And they're staring at it, trying to figure out what it is. This mountain is an Indian head, and it's the famous chief Crazy Horse. And they've carved his face, which is beautifully carved. It's not rustic, it's real smooth. And he's got an outstretched hand, and he's sitting on his horse. And it's a mighty horse, and his horse is head down like this. And he's got his arms pointed out to the lands where all of his people were. And this monument was built by the Indian nation, and it's been being built for 70 years, and it's continuing to be built. But the thing about it is, there's a hole right here under his arm. Mount Rushmore would fit inside that hole. So it's going to take a long time and a lot of years to be able to get it done. But they keep working on it, and it's beautiful. It's magnificent. It's a mountain that's turned into a monument. But that's not what our story is today. Pegasus then starts to fly back towards Mount Rushmore, to the back of Mount Rushmore. And he passes a lake, which is called Sylvan Lake. It's in Custer State Park. Beautiful, beautiful lake. But that's not where they stop either. And they head back towards the back of Mount Rushmore, like I said. And there is a meadow, a very large meadow, with beautiful grasses in it. And it's very large, and there's a stream running through it. And the children wonder what's going on when Pegasus lands in the middle of this like a big pasture, a huge meadow. And he drops them off, and they slide down his wing, and they're little. And he says, now, Desmond, you take good care of these little guys. Now, I'll make sure they're safe, but you keep an eye on them. So, okay. And Pegasus takes off. So they start walking around in the meadow, looking down by the stream, pulling the grasses out, chewing on the end of the grass. And just at one point, the little girls just laid right down in the grass and made like snow angels, but they were grass angels because the grass was soft and wavy. And don't you know, Priya hollers out, look, look over there. And all the children look, and there's a huge herd of horses. And they're walking towards the children. So the children are watching, and they're coming closer, and they want to be afraid, but they know that Pegasus wouldn't leave them someplace where it wouldn't be safe. Well, wouldn't you know, this great, big, black, beautiful stallion walks right up to Desmond and says, well, we're glad you're here. Would you like to spend the afternoon with us? And of course they said yes. And he says, would you like to ride on my back? And they said, yes, Desmond did. So he climbed up on his back. It's a huge stallion. Now there's magic here, so they won't fall off. They're almost like glued on, even though they don't have saddles. And each one of the children found a horse. Now the littlest ones, there was actually ponies. Now ponies are just little horses. They're all the same. They're just smaller, and they don't get big. So they started walking around, all 5 of them, and Desmond had a black stallion, and Tia had a palomino, which was a beige color, tan color, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful horse with a beautiful darker mane, very nice and very gentle, just loving and talking to Tia. And then the other 3, Lindley and Priya and Talia, since they're only, little guys, they had ponies, and they were on there, and they hung on to their mane, and the ponies started walking, and the children weren't afraid because they knew it was okay. And pretty soon, not pretty soon, but 20 minutes or so, they walked along the stream, and Desmond said, is it okay if I give you a name? And he goes, yes. Well, his name, Desmond named him Frida, and Tia named her horse, what did she name her? Oh, Wild, because it would shake its head and stomp its feet, and it acted wild, but it really wasn't. It was very gentle. And then Lindley's horse was named My Friend, and then Priya's horse was named Racy, and Talia's name was Rainbow. So they each had their own horse or their pony. And finally, Freedom said to Desmond, hey, do you want to go faster? And he said, yeah. So he started off on a trot. Well, that was kind of bumpy. So he's trotting along all the rest of them start trotting along. Pretty soon the children get used to that, and it's like, oh, this is fun because this is faster. Then Tia's horse, Freedom, not Freedom, but Wild, says, I want to go faster. Can we go faster? Are you ready? And she said, yes, yes, I am. And so it started into a canter. Well, that was a little better, but it was still kind of rough. And finally, the little girls got so excited. They were having so much fun. And they said, faster, 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 again, again. And the horses took off at a gallop, just moving as fast as they could. And the little girls have long hair, so their hair was in the wind, and the horses' tails were in the wind, just like fire coming out the back of their bodies and their manes. The wind has caught them, and the children are just hanging on for dear life, leaning forward and just so excited. Now, if they wanted to turn, the ponies and the horses said, just take your foot, tip on one side or the other, and we'll go the way that you want to go. So they galloped for a little while until they all finally slowed down, and the horses slowed down to a canter and then to a trot, and then they were walking again. And Freedom and Wild said, oh, that was the best. But Wild says to Freedom, I'm faster than you. Oh my goodness. So those two huge horses get up side by side after they had rested and gotten a drink in the stream. And they said, Desmond, Tia, is it okay if we race? And they said, yes, yes, yes. So they lined up, and little Lindley's going, set, go. And they took off as fast as the wind. And they raced and they raced. They were racing to a big tree. And they raced and they raced. And when they got there, oh, wouldn't you know, Freedom got there first. So Freedom and Desmond won the first race. And then the ponies came trotting up behind him, and they were congratulating him. And Wilds was a little bit upset because he really thought he should win, but he didn't. Well, then they rested. They walked around and rested. The children climbed off and got down in the grass, and the horses settled in a little bit, and then they finally said, how about one more ride before you have to go? So they got on the horses again, and they went up the hills, because they're in the hills, and they climbed up the hills, and they went one way, they went to the right, and then to the left, and they meandered like a snake around and climbing up, and so the children were leaning back on the horses or forward on the horses, depending on how they were going. That was pretty exciting. And then when they got to a place, it was a long, slow slope, and the horses said, hang on, we're going back to the stream. And they ran as fast as they could. They actually were galloping as fast as they could. And you could hear the hoofs, you could hear them on the ground, and there was grass flying up behind them, and everything was just flying in the wind, and they went so fast. Of course, the horses were ahead, and the three ponies followed up. But when they got down to the stream, they were all so giggling and laughing that they slid off of the horses, laid down in the grass, put their hands out, and made snow angels in the grass. Yeah, that's what they did. And the horses got a drink, walked around and flicked their tails and kept the flies off because it was kind of a warm day. And while they're laying in the grass, of course, they look up, and what do they see but a light coming? And here it is, Pegasus. And he comes from a run, flying into a run, and then into a trot, and then into a walk, and he stops just beside them. And he said, are you ready? And they said, no, can't we stay? And they said, no, we have to go. So he tips his wing down. They all clambered up, and they all waved and threw kisses and said goodbye. We can't wait to see you again. And Desmond's waving goodbye to Freedom, and Tia's waving goodbye to Wild. Lindley is going, bye, my friend, bye, my friend. And Priya says to Racy, bye-bye. And Talia says, bye, Rainbow. We'll see you soon. I love you. And that's what they could hear as Pegasus made his way away. So they got on Pegasus's back, and they thought, well, what did we pick up? Did we remember any treasures? When they checked their pockets, and guess what was in there? There were some stones that were from the mountains, and there was some grass. And when they pulled it out, it turned into little treasures and charms that were stones that looked like Mount Rushmore, and stones that looked like little carvings that looked like Crazy Horse, and some of them were the tall grasses. Desmond's was his horse. It was his horse. And each one had something different, and they put it back in their pocket. And then they looked down, and there's the van. And whoosh, down over the van they went, and into the van they are. what? Grandma and Charity were talking about the very same thing. They, they didn't even know the children had been gone. It was just like magic. Well, of course, it was like magic. That's exactly what it was. They reached in their pockets and checked to make sure. And yes, each one pulled out their little treasure, and they knew where they had been. Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse, and best of all, riding the wild horses that are now theirs, that they can go visit again. I've so enjoyed telling you a story tonight. I hope we can meet again soon, and we'll come up with another one. We'll see what it's about next time. Good night.